Imagine, if you will, just sitting completely alone in a dimly lit room.
Oh, setting the scene right away.
Yeah, I mean, picture it. You are in this cozy cabin, right? And it's perched right on the edge of a vast, dense wilderness area.
Sounds incredibly relaxing, honestly.
Right. It's late at night. You are sunk deep into this really comfortable chair, maybe reading a book, just completely, utterly relaxed.
The kind of relax where you don't even realize how heavy your limbs are.
Exactly. The house is completely silent, save for, maybe the occasional pop of a log in the fireplace.
Your breathing is super slow, muscles are loose.
Yes, but then out of nowhere, this sharp, guttural sound just totally shatters that silence.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that changes things instantly.
It really does. It's this unmistakable, almost saw-like, heavy rasp of a massive apex predator, and it sounds like it is right outside your window.
It's terrifying.
Right. So
Yeah.
just picture your physical state in that exact millisecond. What actually happens to you?
Well, the physiological response to an auditory cue like that is just, it's an absolute marvel of biology, really.
Because it happens so fast.
Right. Instantaneously. I mean, it occurs entirely before your conscious logical brain even has a chance to register, like, what kind of animal it might even be.
So you aren't thinking, oh, is that a bear or a mountain lion?
Exactly. No time for that. Your amygdala, which is basically the brain's primitive threat detection center, it just bypasses your prefrontal cortex entirely.
It just takes the wheel. And the subjective experience of that bypass is what we call pure, unadulterated fear.
Yeah, you get this massive, violent jolt of pure adrenaline dumped directly into your bloodstream.
Which I guess explains why your heart rate just absolutely skyrockets.
Oh, it doubles in a fraction of a second, just pounded against your ribs.
Yeah,
And your vision immediately tunnels, too.
like it filters at the periphery.
Right, exactly. It locks onto the source of the threat. And your hearing sharpens to pick up, like, the faintest rustle of leaves.
I've heard your digestion completely stops too. Is that true?
Yeah, it totally shuts down. Blood rushes away from your extremities and just pools in your major muscle group.
Preparing you to run, basically.
Exactly. You experience this instant, crystal clear mental focus. And the thing is, this isn't an inconvenience. It's an absolutely biological gift.
Because it's a brilliant, highly refined mechanism designed over millions of years of evolution to do one single thing, which is save your life.
Right. It gives you the explosive energy required to either fight for your life or run as fast as humanly possible.
It's the ultimate survival protocol.
It really is. And what is most fascinating about this protocol, we often kind of forget in our modern context, is how it is literally designed to resolve.
Resolve, you mean like end?
Yeah, true. Primal fear is fundamentally a temporary state. It has a very clear beginning, a highly mobilized middle, and, crucially, a definitive end.
So once that predator outside your window wanders away back into the brush, you're fine.
Exactly. Once your senses confirm that the physical danger has passed, the fear is supposed to just vanish.
The adrenaline recedes, the cortisol shuts down.
And you are left with this incredible sweeping wash of physical and psychological relief.
Yeah.
Your body just resets to a baseline of safety.
Okay, but let's step out of the wilderness for a second and just pivot to reality.
Yeah, let's look the actual environment you and I live in every single day.
Right, because what happens when that predator isn't a wolf or a bear?
That's the real question.
What happens when the perceived threat is, like a looming project deadline at work that you are already way behind on?
Or a terrifying geopolitical news headline you just scrolled past while waiting in line for coffee.
Exactly. Or even just this vague, lingering, culturally induced sense that you aren't doing enough or earning enough with your life.
And that right there is where the hardware malfunctions.
How so?
Well, we're operating ancient Pleistocene-era biological hardware in a completely unprecedented, hyper-connected, modern environment.
So our brains are basically out of date for the world we built.
Exactly. Our nervous systems cannot easily distinguish between a physical threat to our bodily survival and an abstract threat to our social or financial status.
So an angry email from a boss feels the same to the amygdala as a tiger.
Literally the same alarm system.
Yeah.
But when the alarm is constantly being triggered by abstract concepts, the environment never actually becomes safe in a physical sense.
Because the predator, the email, the economy, never actually walks away into the brush.
Precisely. The system just gets jammed in the on position.
And the cortisol just keeps dripping into your bloodstream.
Yeah, and suddenly, this brilliant, life-saving biological mechanism completely morphs.
It turns into something else.
It transforms from a helpful survival tool into this grinding, endless, exhausting loop of daily chronic anxiety.
Which is so relatable. I mean, if you are listening to us right now, maybe on your commute or while folding laundry, you probably know exactly what that loop feels like.
Oh, absolutely. That
Okay.
tight feeling in your chest while just sitting at a desk.
Yeah, and that brings us to the core mission of today's deep dive into the material we've gathered.
We really want to get into the mechanics of this.
We are talking about taking back control of our minds in what undeniably feels like an era of unbelievable, relentless anxiety.
And we are not going to do it by telling you to just quit your job or throw your phone in the ocean.
Run away and live off the grid. No, that is not realistic.
Not at all. We are going to do it by fundamentally rewiring how your nervous system actually interacts with the modern world.
So I want to pose a question to you, the listener. What if the absolute best, most scientifically validated antidote to your overwhelming anxiety requires less than 1% of your day?
It sounds almost too good to be true, but when you look at the raw mathematics of mental health, it really frames the challenge in a completely different light.
It removes that whole intimidation factor, right? That feeling like you need a total life overhaul.
Exactly. Let's do the math on that because it is incredibly revealing.
Okay, well, there are exactly 1,440 minutes in a single 24-hour day.
Right.
And 1% of that total time is roughly 14.4 minutes.
Just about 14 minutes.
So our cheerful, scientifically grounded premise today is basically this: dedicating just 14 minutes a day, less than 1% of your waking life, to specific, highly intentional neurobiological habits can completely transform your mental health.
It acts as a wedge. It can physically serve as a wedge to stop the anxiety spiral.
And that gives you enough breathing room to unlock this hidden wellspring of creativity, focus, and genuine joy that you might not even realize you possess.
Yeah, and the foundational science supporting this 14-minute premise is actually rooted in neuroplasticity.
Which is a buzzword we hear a lot, but what does it actually mean in this context?
Simply put, neuroplasticity is the brain's lifelong ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections.
It's not rigid.
No, not at all. For a long time, the cultural assumption was that to fundamentally alter your baseline state of mind, you needed to meditate for 3 hours a day on a mountaintop.
Or spend decades in deep psychoanalysis.
Exactly. But the data in the sources we looked at shows something far more accessible.
Which is a huge relief.
Small, consistent, targeted shifts in how we direct our attention and regulate our physical bodies can physically alter the gray matter in our brains.
So you do not need massive time investments. You just need precision.
Precision is the perfect word for it.
And that 14-minute framework is going to be the spine of everything we discuss today. We are going on a journey from the exhausting depths of the anxious brain all the way to the soaring heights of creative flow.
We're going to learn how to tame that inner frightened creature we talked about.
Right, and how to talk to the competing voices in your head, and ultimately how to use that 14-minute wedge to quilt together a life of profound purpose.
But before we can fix the machine, we really need to understand exactly how it is breaking down.
So true. Let's unpack this anxiety spiral. Because honestly, for most of us, anxiety doesn't just feel like a passing emotion. It feels like a meticulously designed trap.
It functions exactly like a trap. And it's a trap built from both our biology and our cultural conditioning.
How so? Where does it start?
To understand the anatomy of this spiral, we really need to look at the mechanics of the brain's hemispheres.
Okay, the left and right brain stuff.
Right. Our modern society, our educational systems, corporate structures, economic models, they heavily reward left hemisphere thinking.
What does the left hemisphere actually do, functionally?
It's primarily responsible for verbal analysis, logic, linear reasoning, categorization, and this relentless forward-looking productivity.
So it's the part of your brain that evaluates data, predicts future outcomes, and tries to control all the variables.
Exactly.
Wait, let me pause you there. If the left hemisphere is responsible for logic and problem solving, isn't that a good thing?
I mean, yes, it's essential.
Right, because that's the part of the brain that figures out how to pay the mortgage, gets you good grades in school, and earns you a promotion at the office. It seems like we should be rewarding it.
You are absolutely right that it is incredibly useful. We absolutely need the left hemisphere to navigate the complex logistical realities of modern institutions.
So where's the trap?
The problem arises not from its existence, but from its total dominance. The left hemisphere is fantastic at solving linear mechanical problems.
Like fixing a broken engine or balancing a spreadsheet.
Exactly. However, this same highly developed, highly praised, analytical side of the brain houses the exact cognitive mechanisms that generate chronic anxiety.
Oh, wow. Why is that?
Because the left brain is constantly projecting into the future to predict potential threats. And it tries to treat abstract, unsolvable emotional issues as if they were math problems.
Oh, I see. So it's trying to calculate a solution to something that isn't a math equation.
Right. When you constantly rely on verbal analytical thinking to solve a feeling of profound existential dread, you are literally strengthening the neural pathways of worry.
It becomes a structural loop.
Exactly. The left brain demands a concrete solution to an abstract fear.
Let me introduce an analogy here to paint a picture of what that structural loop actually feels like.
Go for it.
Think of those severe, heavy-duty metal tire ripper spikes you see at the exit of a rental car parking lot.
Oh yeah, the ones with the big warning sign that says, "Do not back up. Severe tire damage."
Yes, exactly those. The anxiety spiral generated by the left brain works just like those spikes. As long as you're worrying, overthinking, and projecting into the future, the spikes press down smoothly.
Allowing the anxiety to just roll forward and escalate.
Exactly. But the second you try to stop, the second you try to roll backward into a state of relaxation or presence,
The spikes catch.
the spikes catch. The left brain actively prevents you from backing down because it demands that you solve the problem first.
It essentially screams, "You can't relax right now. We haven't figured out how to guarantee that the economy won't crash in 5 years."
Right. But because the problem is completely abstract and totally out of your control, there is no physical solution. You just can't solve it.
So you just stay stuck.
Yeah, you stay stuck, revving your mental engine over those jagged spikes, burning fuel, and totally destroying your peace of mind.
That analogy perfectly captures the mechanical rigidity of left brain anxiety. It really does.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
And what makes breaking out of that parking lot even more difficult is the fact that human anxiety is not an isolated individual experience.
What do you mean by that?
From an evolutionary perspective, anxiety is actually a highly contagious group dynamic.
Contagious, like a cold.
Yeah, biologically contagious. This is driven by specialized neural networks, commonly referred to as mirror neuron systems.
Mirror neurons, I've heard of those. What do they do?
Well, these networks evolved to absorb, simulate, and reflect the emotional states, postures, and facial expressions of the people around us.
So empathy isn't just a psychological concept, it's a hardwired mechanical reflex.
Exactly. Think about early human tribes. If one person at the edge of the camp suddenly senses danger, their eyes widen, their breathing hitches, their posture stiffens, it would be terribly inefficient if every other member of the tribe had to independently assess the environment.
Right, to verify the threat. By the time they did all that, it would be too late. The tiger would have them.
Precisely. So mirror neurons ensure that if one person feels fear, the entire tribe instantly downloads that physiological state and prepares to defend themselves.
Which is a brilliant survival mechanism for small groups facing physical predators.
It is. But today, that tribe is fundamentally different.
Yeah, our tribe is the entire interconnected internet. It's the 24-hour, algorithmically optimized outrage news cycle.
It's the stressed-out coworker in the cubicle next to yours who is radiating panic about a quarterly report.
It's the person aggressively tailgating you on the highway.
Exactly. You are physiologically absorbing the chronic stress, outrage, and low-level panic of thousands of peers, curated environments, and global events simultaneously.
And your mirror neurons do not know that a terrifying video from the other side of the planet poses no immediate physical threat to you sitting in your living room.
They just register the fear. And then, crucially, because you are now stressed, you are pumping that anxious energy right back out into your immediate environment.
Infecting your family and coworkers.
Yes. Trying to maintain a baseline of calm in modern society is not just a matter of personal willpower. It is an active fight against our biological imperative to synchronize with a profoundly anxious collective.
I can definitely hear a skeptical listener pushing back on this right now, though.
Oh, for sure. What would they say?
If I'm listening to this, I might be thinking, look, I'm not absorbing random internet panic. I'm just a realist. Have you seen the state of the world? Have you seen the cost of groceries? Have you looked at the housing market?
Those are all very valid points.
Right. They'd say, of course I'm stressed. The world is objectively stressful, and my anxiety is just an accurate assessment of reality.
Yeah, it's a very common perspective.
So how do we distinguish between being a rational realist and being caught in this left brain trap?
It is a really vital distinction to make. Reality certainly does contain significant challenges, hardships, and dangers. But chronic anxiety is rarely an accurate assessment of reality.
Oh, so.
To use another analogy, your nervous system is functioning like a highly sophisticated smoke detector in your kitchen.
Okay, I like this. A smoke detector.
A functioning smoke detector alerts you to a fire so you can put it out or escape. That is realism.
Right, that's just practical.
But when you are caught in the anxiety spiral, your biological smoke detector has lost its calibration. It has become so hypersensitized that it starts screaming at top volume just because you are boiling water for pasta.
Wow. It reacts to steam the same way it reacts to a raging inferno.
Exactly. You might look at the economy and rightly see a challenge to navigate, that is the boiling water, but your uncalibrated nervous system reacts as if your literal survival is in imminent violent jeopardy.
So that is not realism at all. That is biological dysregulation.
Precisely. And here is the brutal truth about trying to fix that dysregulated smoke detector.
Hmm.
You cannot just yell at it to turn off.
Right, you can't just command yourself to stop being anxious. Which leads us to one of the most important psychological principles we're going to cover today. Nature abhors a vacuum.
Yes, the concept of thought suppression, trying to forcefully empty your mind of a specific worry, is famously counterproductive.
It creates that ironic rebound effect, right?
Yes, if I tell you right now, under no circumstances are you allowed to think about a white bear, what is the immediate, overwhelming image in your mind?
A giant white bear. It's impossible not to picture it.
Exactly. The brain requires immense cognitive energy to monitor itself to ensure it's not thinking about the bear.
And by monitoring for the thought, it actively keeps the thought active.
Exactly. If you try to simply empty your mind of financial worry or social anxiety, your highly sensitized alarm system will immediately find something else to fill that void.
Because an empty radar screen feels dangerous to a hypervigilant system, the anxiety will just rush right back in.
You cannot simply end the feeling of anxiety by deleting it.
You have to replace it.
You must replace it. The objective of our 14-minute daily shift isn't to fight the anxiety in a head-to-head battle.
So what are we doing instead?
The goal is to intentionally shift your neural activity and metabolic energy away from the structures that generate worry,
And funnel them where?
into the specific brain structures that generate states of curiosity, compassion, and awe. By actively engaging those alternative pathways, you naturally deprive the anxiety spiral of the energy it needs to keep spinning.
So the smoke detector quiets down not because you broke it, but because you opened a window and cleared the steam.
That's exactly right.
Okay, this is where the rubber meets the road. If the goal is to shift that neural activity, how do we actually do that when we're in the middle of a stressful day?
We need practical tools.
Right, how do we tame this inner creature when our heart is racing? Let's dive deep into the art of amygdala whispering.
I love that term. To understand how to actively soothe your system, we first need to map out the threat zones of the autonomic nervous system.
Okay, let's map it.
The easiest way to conceptualize this is through the metaphor of a traffic light.
Green, yellow, red. Walk us through what is actually happening in the body during each of these phases. Let's start with green.
Let's start with green. The green zone represents a state of deep safety, calm, and social engagement.
So everything is functioning normally?
Yes, in this state, your parasympathetic nervous system is dominant. Your heart rate is steady and variable. Your breathing is deep and diaphragmatic.
And what about the brain?
Crucially, your bodily resources are allocated toward long-term maintenance. Your digestion works perfectly, your immune system functions optimally, and the prefrontal cortex, the logical, creative part of your brain, is fully online.
You can think clearly, feel empathy, and connect with others.
Exactly.
So green is definitely where we want to live. But what happens when the smoke detector picks up a little bit of steam and we shift into yellow?
Yellow is the mobilization phase. It's the hypervigilance zone. This is sympathetic nervous system activation.
Meaning the fight or flight is kicking in.
Exactly. Your heart rate elevates, adrenaline begins to circulate, and your muscles tense. You are actively scanning your environment for danger.
And what happens to the logical brain?
The prefrontal cortex begins to dim, and your focus narrows. You become reactive rather than proactive. You might feel edgy, irritable, or restless.
Honestly, this sounds like the baseline state for about 80% of the modern workforce, just constantly hovering in yellow, waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Unfortunately, yes, it's very common.
Oh, what happens when we push past that into red?
The red zone is the extreme primal threat response. When the brain calculates that fighting or fleeing is no longer possible, that the threat is just overwhelming, it triggers the dorsal vagal complex.
What does that do?
This is where you freeze. You might become completely numb, dissociate from reality, or experience a full-blown paralyzing panic attack.
Oh, wow.
Your heart rate might actually plummet,
Yeah.
and your body essentially plays dead. It is a last resort biological defense mechanism.
And when we are stuck in the yellow or the red zone, we are entirely at the mercy of the oldest part of our brain, right? We mentioned it earlier, the amygdala.
Yes, that little almond-shaped alarm bell sitting deep in the temporal lobe.
So it's fully in charge at that point.
The amygdala acts as the brain's ultimate threat detection center, and it has the authority to override almost everything else.
But here's the critical, fundamental catch that most intelligent, highly educated people completely miss when trying to manage their stress.
Yes, this is so important.
The amygdala does not process language. It is a primal, nonverbal structure. It responds to sensory, input sight, sound, physical sensation, not vocabulary.
It doesn't care about your words.
Wait, I really want to underline this for the listener because this explains so much of human frustration.
Yeah.
You are saying that when I am having a panic attack or when I am spiraling with anxiety about a presentation, I cannot logic my way out of it.
You absolutely cannot. Trying to argue your way out of a panic attack using logic and vocabulary is neurologically impossible. You cannot logic your way back to the green zone.
So talking to myself doesn't help.
You can stand in front of a mirror and tell yourself out loud, I am perfectly safe, I'm prepared for this meeting, everything is fine, 1,000 times. But the amygdala isn't listening to your words.
Because it doesn't speak English.
It doesn't understand English syntax. It only understands the physiological state of your body.
It's like trying to explain the principles of aerodynamics to a frightened horse.
That is a brilliant way to put it.
Right. The horse does not care about your impressive vocabulary. It only cares about your energy, your tone, and your physical posture.
If you are screaming, calm down, at the horse while waving your arms, the horse is going to bolt.
Exactly. So, to get back to the green zone, we have to stop using words. We have to use nonverbal biological cues. We have to become amygdala whisperers.
And the techniques for this are remarkably simple, yet they tap into incredibly complex physiological hardware.
Let's start with the breath, because it's the one thing we always have with us no matter where we are.
The mechanics of breathing are the most direct, accessible interface you have with your autonomic nervous system. And it is a bidirectional street.
Bidirectional, meaning it goes both ways.
Right. When you are anxious, your breathing naturally becomes fast and shallow. But if you purposefully change your breathing, you can actually dictate your state of arousal.
How does that actually work, mechanically?
Here is the physiological mechanism. When you take a deep inhale, your diaphragm moves down, your heart has a little more space, and the blood flows slightly faster, which causes your brain to slightly increase your heart rate.
Okay, so inhale speeds things up.
Yes. When you exhale, the diaphragm moves up, the space compresses, blood flow slows, and the brain signals the heart rate to decrease.
So the inhale is a gas pedal and the exhale is the brake.
Exactly. To signal immediate, undeniable safety to the amygdala, you want to focus entirely on an elongated exhale.
Like a sigh.
Yes, taking a deep breath in and then releasing it with a long, slow, audible dropping sigh physically stimulates the vagus nerve.
And the vagus nerve is like the main highway for calming down.
It's the main superhighway of the parasympathetic nervous system. When you sigh deeply, you are mechanically pressing the brake pedal for your nervous system.
You are forcing a physiological shift toward the green zone.
The amygdala registers the long exhale and basically concludes, we cannot possibly be running from a predator right now if we are exhaling this slowly. Therefore, we must be safe.
I challenge anyone listening to just try that right now. Take a breath in and let out a long, heavy, audible sigh.
It really works instantly.
You can literally feel the tension drop out of your shoulders. It feels incredible. But the next technique completely changed how I think about my daily habits.
Which one is that?
We just talked about the breath. Let's talk about the eyes, the soft A's. Because culturally, we're taught that intense, laser-focused staring is a sign of productivity.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. If I am staring intensely at my computer screen or locking eyes with someone, it means I am paying attention. It means I am working hard.
Societally, we prize hard focus.
Mm-hmm.
But biologically, that kind of intense foveal vision where you narrow your visual field to a single point is intrinsically linked to the sympathetic nervous system.
So it's literally a fight-or-flight response.
Yes. When a predator locks onto prey, or when a human perceives a threat, the pupils dilate and the visual field narrows to calculate distance and speed.
Your brain interprets laser focus as a state of high alert.
Exactly.
So staring at my overflowing inbox with intense focus is literally telling my brain there is a tiger in the room. How do we reverse that?
By engaging panoramic vision, or what we call a soft gaze.
How do you do a soft gaze?
When you consciously relax the tiny muscles around your eyes and allow yourself to take in your peripheral vision, noticing the walls on either side of you, the ceiling, the space around the object you are looking at, it instantly sends a calming signal to the brainstem.
It tells the amygdala, I am broadening my awareness. I don't need to lock onto a singular threat right now. The coast is entirely clear.
Yes. Vision and autonomic arousal are deeply, inextricably linked. Broadening your visual field physically deactivates the stress response.
I use this all the time now. If I feel myself getting worked up at my desk, I just lean back, stop looking directly at the monitor, and try to see the corners of the room out of the sides of my eyes.
It's a great reset.
It is like flipping a circuit breaker.
Yeah?
And that physical, sensory approach ties directly into auditory signals as well.
Let's talk about the late-night narrator voice.
Yes. This is fascinating. There is this amazing research regarding the tactics of elite hostage negotiators in the sources we studied.
It's incredible how they operate.
When these professionals are dealing with an armed standoff, which is literally the highest stress, most dangerous situation imaginable, a deep, terrifying red zone crisis, they do not yell.
No, they don't.
They do not speak quickly. They do not match the panicked energy of the hostage taker. Instead, they deliberately adopt a very specific vocal tone.
The late-night DJ voice.
Exactly. It is a low, slow, melodic, downward inflecting tone. It sounds exactly like a late-night radio DJ, like, hey there, it's 2 a.m., we've got plenty of time. Let's just take it easy tonight.
And the reason that specific vocal modulation is a mandatory tactic for hostage negotiators isn't just about psychological persuasion or building rapport.
What's it really about?
It is rooted in acoustic biology. Human nervous systems are exquisitely attuned to vocal frequencies. A low, slow, rhythmic voice produces physical sound vibrations that are intrinsically mechanically soothing to the human ear and brain.
While fast, high-pitched speech signals panic and triggers the listener's amygdala.
Exactly. But when a negotiator uses that late-night DJ voice, they are effectively bypassing the suspect's panicked, irrational, logic-resistant brain, and they are directly massaging the suspect's amygdala through physical sound waves.
And the remarkable, transformative thing about this is that you don't need to be in a hostage negotiation to use it. You can use this exact acoustic biology on yourself.
Precisely. This leads to the practice of kind internal self-talk, or what we can acronymize as KIST.
KIST. But the execution of this is where most people fail, right?
Yeah, they try to talk themselves down, but they use the internal voice of a strict, angry parent.
Like, stop panicking, get it together, you're being ridiculous.
And that harsh internal tone just triggers the amygdala further.
You have to speak to the anxious part of your brain exactly as if it were a frightened, shivering, stray animal that you just found in the rain.
Yes, compassion is key here.
You don't judge it, you don't yell at it to toughen up. You use that soft, low, melodic, late-night voice internally, or even whisper it out loud.
You say things like, I know you're scared right now. I feel how fast your heart is beating.
I know this feels overwhelming, but I've got you. We are safe in this room. We are okay.
Treating your anxiety as a separate, frightened entity, rather than as an inherent, shameful flaw in your core character, is a profound psychological shift.
Because it creates a necessary cognitive distance.
Exactly. You are no longer an anxious person. You are a capable person who is currently comforting a dysregulated nervous system.
And once you use the sigh, the soft gaze, and the soothing tone to establish that physical baseline of safety, you can begin to actively populate your daily environment with what the research refers to as glimmers.
Glimmers. I absolutely love this concept.
Me too, because it gives us something positive to hunt for. We all know what triggers are. The word trigger is everywhere.
Triggers are the sensory cues that instantly throw us into the red zone. A specific tone of voice, a certain smell, a harsh email notification.
But glimmers are the exact biological opposite of triggers. They are micro moments of joy, beauty, or profound safety that instantly cue the nervous system to shift into the green zone.
They act as biological anchors. The nervous system is always scanning the environment. When it finds a glimmer, it registers a microdose of safety.
What does a glimmer look like in real life?
A glimmer could be the smell of rain hitting hot pavement in the summer. It could be the specific comforting weight and warmth of your favorite ceramic coffee cup in the morning.
Oh, I love that. Or maybe the sound of a pet breathing heavily while asleep. Or the way the sunlight hits the leaves outside your window.
Yes. When you intentionally notice, pause, and savor these micro moments, even just for 5 seconds, you are actively building an internal and external sanctuary.
You are providing your nervous system with undeniable sensory evidence of safety.
Exactly.
So we've learned how to calm the frightened creature. We are using the breath, the eyes, the voice, and the glimmers to soothe the amygdala.
That's the first step.
But here is where the narrative of our own minds gets really interesting, because soothing the amygdala only puts out the immediate physical fire.
Right, the root cause is still there.
Once your heart rate finally slows down, once the adrenaline recedes, you are still left alone in your head with the thoughts that triggered the panic in the first place.
And we have to ask, who exactly is generating those thoughts?
Yeah, because once things quiet down, you start to realize that the anxiety isn't just one single voice. It feels like a whole committee. It feels like there's an active civil war going on inside your head.
That realization is the gateway to one of the most transformative models in modern psychology. We have to move away from the idea of a monolithic mind.
Meaning we aren't just one personality.
Right. The traditional assumption is that you are just one unified personality. But advanced therapeutic models suggest something different. The human psyche is made up of a community of internal parts.
We refer to this as the fragmented self in the deep dive sources.
Yes. And when we experience chronic anxiety, prolonged stress, or developmental trauma, these internal parts become highly polarized.
They stop working together.
They stop working together and take on extreme, rigid roles to protect us from pain.
Let's introduce the cast of characters in this internal drama. If you are listening, try to map these onto your own thought patterns. First, at the very bottom, you have the exiles.
The exiles, these are the most vulnerable, raw parts of us.
They hold the painful memories of past rejection, deep fear, shame, or childhood hurt.
They are the sensitive inner children that experience pain. And because that pain was too overwhelming to process at the time, the rest of the mind essentially locks them away in the basement.
The mind tries to exile them so we don't have to walk around feeling that agonizing vulnerability all day.
But exiling a part of your psyche requires immense, continuous psychological energy.
It still keeps them in the basement.
To keep those exiles locked safely away, the psyche employs a group of proactive, highly controlling parts that we call the managers.
Ah, the managers. The rule followers. They are the relentless perfectionists, the harsh inner critics, the hypervigilant taskmasters.
Their entire exhausting job is to control your environment and your behavior to keep you perfectly safe from the judgment or rejection of others.
Ensuring that the vulnerable exiles never get triggered again.
Exactly.
I'm going to push back on this, or rather, I'll voice what the listener might be thinking right now.
Let's hear it.
Wait a minute. You are saying I should view my inner perfectionist, my manager, as a symptom of a fragmented psyche. But honestly, my manager is usually right.
They'd say the manager is why they're successful.
Exactly. My manager is the reason I get up at 6 a.m., hit the gym, answer my emails perfectly, and pay my mortgage on time. If I don't listen to the manager stressing me out about a deadline, I'll get fired.
It's a very fair point.
How do we reconcile this psychological model with the actual high-stakes demands of keeping our lives together?
That is the perfect question, and it is exactly what the managers themselves would argue. The managers are not evil. They are highly effective at a very specific task survival in a competitive system.
So they do keep you employed.
They do. They do keep you from making social blunders. But the cost is catastrophic to your nervous system. The managers operate entirely on cortisol and fear.
They believe that if you make even one mistake, you will be utterly destroyed.
Yes. They are the parts waking you up at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat to remind you of a slightly awkward comment you made in a meeting 5 years ago, convincing you that everyone still hates you for it.
They keep you safe, but they make you miserable.
Exactly. And because they are so rigid and exhausting, eventually their control slips. The pressure of life gets too high, the manager fails to keep things perfect, and the pain of the exile starts bubbling up toward the surface.
And that is when the third group kicks down the door. The firefighters.
The most chaotic members of the committee.
The firefighters are entirely reactive, right? While managers are proactive and care deeply about the future, firefighters do not care about long-term consequences.
Or health or reputation. Their singular mission is to extinguish the immediate, burning emotional pain of the exiles right now at any cost.
So when a manager fails and you start to feel deep shame or anxiety, a firefighter takes over the control panel.
And this manifests as highly impulsive, numbing, or distracting behaviors.
If you are listening and wondering what a firefighter looks like, imagine this. You had a terrible day at work. Your manager failed to keep the boss happy. You feel awful. You pull into your driveway.
But instead of going inside,
Right, instead of going inside to greet your family, you sit in the driver's seat in the dark and you scroll through short-form videos on your phone for 45 minutes. You aren't even enjoying the videos.
you're just completely glazed over, numbing out.
Or maybe it's binge eating an entire sleeve of cookies standing over the sink. Maybe it's explosive, irrational anger at a loved one over something tiny. Maybe it's substance abuse.
The firefighter rushes in to throw a heavy blanket of dopamine or distraction over the pain.
Have you ever felt like you contain two completely opposite personalities?
It's so common to feel that way.
You have this hyper-ambitious, rigidly organized self who wants to conquer the world, perfectly organize the garage, and meal prep an entire month of healthy dinners.
And simultaneously,
Yes, simultaneously, you have a completely burned out feral self who just wants to live in a dark cave, ignore every email, and eat junk food.
every single week.
Yeah.
Right. But that paradox is not a sign that you are losing your mind.
What is it then?
It is simply the mechanical reality of your internal managers and your firefighters locked in a desperate, exhausting wrestling match over how best to protect the exile.
The manager says we must be perfect to be safe.
And the firefighter says, perfection is too hard and we are in pain. We must numb out to be safe.
Understanding the structure is so deeply liberating because it entirely removes the element of shame.
It really does.
When you sit in the driveway scrolling for an hour, you don't have to hate yourself. You can say, oh, my firefighter part is just trying to protect me from feeling the stress of the day.
Your parts are not trying to sabotage you. They are just utilizing outdated, extreme strategies.
But if they are locked in a civil war, how do we establish peace? The goal, obviously, isn't to violently eradicate these parts because they are trying to help.
Right. We have to bring them into harmony by introducing a new leader to the system, a leader who doesn't use fear. We call this leader the kind detective.
The KIST detective. I love that imagery.
When an anxious or disturbing thought arises, let's say the manager is screaming, "You are never going to finish this project. You are a complete fraud and everyone is about to find out." Your default reaction is usually to fight the thought.
Or agree with it and spiral.
Exactly. The intervention is to step back and observe the thought with the persona of a kind detective. You approach your own mind with gentle curiosity rather than judgment or panic.
The KIST detective doesn't arrest the manager. The detective just asks really, really good questions.
What kind of questions?
When the manager screams about being a fraud, the KIST detective looks around the immediate environment and asks, is there any actual physical, undeniable evidence that this catastrophic thought is true right in this exact moment?
Usually the answer is no.
Then the detective asks the magic question. Could the exact opposite actually be true? Could the opposite be that you are actually well prepared? Could the opposite be that the project doesn't define your entire human worth?
By stepping back and asking these non-judgmental questions, you are no longer identifying as the anxious part. You are accessing what therapeutic models call the core self.
The core self, what is that?
The core self is not just another part fighting for control. It is your true, undamaged essence. It is the consciousness that observes the parts.
And the core self is biologically and psychologically characterized by specific hallmarks, right? We often refer to these as the C's in the literature.
Yes, but let's just focus deeply on the three most critical ones: curiosity, compassion, and clarity.
Let's unpack those three because they are the antidote to the managers. How does stepping into curiosity neurologically deactivate defense mechanisms?
Because curiosity and anxiety are neurologically incompatible. Anxiety requires a state of rigid certainty, the certainty that something terrible will happen.
The manager is absolutely certain you will fail.
Right. When the core self introduces genuine curiosity like asking, isn't it interesting that my chest feels tight right now? I wonder what triggered that part of me. You suspend that rigid certainty.
You shift blood flow back to the prefrontal cortex to investigate, which deprives the amygdala of its fuel.
Exactly. Compassion does the same thing. When the core self looks at the binge-eating firefighter and says, "I see how hard you're working to numb our pain. Thank you for trying to help," it releases oxytocin.
So the firefighter immediately relaxes because it feels seen and appreciated, not shamed.
And clarity is the result. Once the parts relax, the core self can assess the situation with clear, unclouded vision. When you operate from the core self, the internal civil war simply ceases. You lead the committee.
The committee no longer leads you.
Beautifully said.
Okay, this is a massive paradigm shift. We now understand the mechanics of the anxiety spiral in the left brain. We know how to whisper to the amygdala using our breath and voice.
And we know how to step into the core self as the kind detective.
Right, to mediate the internal civil war. So how do we actually guarantee that we do this? How do we take all this high-level psychology and operationalize it into our messy, busy, chaotic daily routines?
This is where we bring back our foundational premise from the beginning.
The 14-minute daily defense, the 1% shift.
Operationalizing this requires a fundamental shift from a reactive state to a proactive state. Consider how most people begin their day.
They wake up to an alarm, and within 30 seconds, they reach for their smartphone.
They check their email, they read a news headline, they look at social media. In that instant, before their feet have even touched the floor, they have handed the remote control of their nervous system over to the external environment.
The entire day immediately becomes defensive. You are reacting to other people's urgencies, panics, and demands.
Dedicating a specific, fiercely protected window of time like 14 unbroken minutes to intentional grounding practices completely intercepts that trajectory.
You are making a proactive choice to establish the green zone before the world can push you into the yellow. And what do we actually do in those 14 minutes? We aren't just sitting there staring at a wall. We have a toolkit now.
Yes, and one of the most powerful rapid-fire tools to use within that 14-minute window is the senses grounding exercise.
It takes just 90 seconds, but it is a phenomenal way to violently rip yourself out of time traveling.
Time traveling?
Yeah, think about it. Anxiety is almost exclusively a time-traveling disease. You are either projecting into a terrifying future or ruminating on a shameful past. But your senses only exist in the present tense.
That is a brilliant and necessary physiological truth to anchor onto. You literally cannot see an object in the future. You cannot physically touch a texture in the past.
So engaging the sensory systems forces the brain's massive processing power out of the abstract, worrying left hemisphere, and directly into the concrete present moment reality of the right hemisphere and the body.
It forces you into the now.
So if you are sitting in your car before work or sitting on the edge of your bed, here is the 90-second drill. You take 30 seconds to strictly observe visual details.
But you don't just lazily label things, right?
No, not just like chair, window, dog. You have to engage the brain's detail processing. Look at the exact specific shade of blue on the spine of a book. Look at the precise angle of how the shadows fall across the hardwood floor. Find a pattern you've never noticed before.
Yeah, what's next?
Then you close your eyes and spend 30 seconds doing pure, isolated listening. Pick out the low hum of the refrigerator. Isolate the distant sound of traffic tires on wet asphalt. Listen to the distinct rhythm of your own breathing.
And the last 30 seconds.
Finally, 30 seconds of physical sensation. Feel the specific heavy weight of your clothes resting on your shoulders. Feel the temperature difference of the air on the back of your hands versus your palms. Feel the points of contact where your shoes meet the floor.
90 seconds of intense sensory presence, and you are completely, undeniably anchored in reality.
Exactly. That 90-second drill acts as a hard mechanical reset for the nervous system. But the 14-minute defense extends beyond just that initial grounding.
It also involves a critical concept in behavioral psychology, the power of substitution and habit building.
How does substitution work here?
Often, when we realize our mental health is deteriorating, our managers take over, and we focus entirely on prohibition. We make harsh rules. I will absolutely not eat junk food when I'm stressed. I will not doom scroll on social media tonight. I will not snap at my kids.
But simply forbidding a firefighter behavior creates a massive psychological vacuum.
And as we established earlier, nature abhors a vacuum.
Yeah.
If you just forbid the doom scrolling, the firefighter part of you will panic because the pain is still there and now its tool is gone.
It will just find another, potentially a worse way to numb out.
Precisely. So you cannot just forbid, you have to substitute. You have to replace the bad habit with a genuine act of profound self-care.
If you feel the overwhelming urge to raid the fridge at 10 p.m. out of sheer stress, substitute it. Go into the bathroom, turn the lights down, and take an incredibly mindful, warm shower, focusing entirely on the sensation of the water.
Read one chapter of a fantastic, engaging fiction novel to escape reality in a healthy way.
Or, honestly, sometimes the most radical act of self-care is to just eat something genuinely nutritious, drink a glass of water, and get into bed at 8:30.
Your complex, hardworking biological body deserves deep respect, not just whatever cheap, destructive dopamine fix is closest to hand.
Respecting the biological reality of the body is foundational, but to successfully implement this 1% shift, To actually guard those 14 minutes and engage in true self-care, we have to address the social
The
obstacle.
boundaries. You have to establish boundaries.
Yeah.
To protect your peace, you must practice the difficult art of saying no.
Oh, this is the hardest part. This is agonizing for the people-pleasing managers inside us. We are terrified that if we say no, we will be rejected and exiled.
But it is absolutely vital. You have to learn to write down and deliver a polite, professional, but incredibly firm no to the people who drain your time and energy out of sheer convenience.
If a coworker wants to pick your brain for an hour right when you need to decompress, you have to protect that time.
Protecting your schedule is not selfish. It is a mandatory prerequisite for maintaining the mental health required to be of any use to anyone else.
It is mandatory, but here we must introduce a crucial nuance. There is a danger in modern pop psychology of weaponizing boundaries.
Yes, a rigid boundary enforced without any regard for others just leads to total isolation.
A healthy boundary must be balanced with deep empathy. Empathy is the cognitive and emotional ability to understand and share the feelings of another human being. And empathy plays a surprisingly powerful role in our own physiological well-being.
It isn't just a nice thing to do, it's a biological strategy.
There is this incredible, deeply moving story from the material we reviewed for this deep dive. It's about a woman whose father was tragically and unjustly lost to severe political violence.
Such a heavy, intense trauma.
If you look at that level of intense trauma, grief, and systemic injustice, you would completely expect someone who experienced that to be entirely consumed by rage. You would expect her to build massive, impenetrable, defensive walls around herself to never be hurt again.
But she didn't do that.
No, she took a completely different path. She travels extensively and preaches a message of absolute radical kindness, forgiveness, and profound empathy. The lesson there is staggering. You truly never know the pain someone else is carrying.
The person cutting you off in traffic, the coworker snapping at you, they might be carrying an exile's pain that you cannot even fathom.
And from a strict neurobiological standpoint, her choice to lean into empathy rather than rage is a survival strategy.
Empathy isn't just a moral or philosophical virtue. It is a biological imperative for a healthy system. When we engage in acts of genuine empathy, connection, and kindness, our brains release a powerful cascade of neurotransmitters.
Specifically, oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin.
And those chemicals actively chemically counteract cortisol. They lower our own stress levels, reduce inflammation, and promote physical healing.
By choosing empathy over rigid judgment or isolation, we are biologically making ourselves happier, healthier, and vastly more resilient.
It shifts us out of that defensive, walled-off crouch.
And once you are out of the defensive crouch, once your amygdala is calm, your parts are listening to the kind detective, and you are anchored in the present. A secret, magical doorway opens in your mind.
The doorway to curiosity.
Curiosity is perhaps the most potent yet most fundamentally underutilized tool in mental health, but to use it effectively, we have to distinguish between two very different, neurologically distinct types of curiosity.
Deprivation curiosity and interest curiosity.
Okay, let's break those down. Deprivation curiosity is miserable. It feels anxious, grasping, and lacking.
It's the desperate feeling of, what did I do wrong in that meeting?
Well,
Why didn't they text me back immediately? Who is mad at me? What is everyone else doing on social media that I'm missing out on?
it's entirely driven by fear and the ego's need to protect itself.
Exactly. Psychologically, deprivation curiosity is the urgent need to close an information gap solely to alleviate anxiety. It is the brain saying, I do not know the answer, and not knowing is dangerous, so I must find out immediately.
Interest curiosity, on the other hand, operates from a completely different neural pathway. It is expansive, it is joyful.
It is the intrinsic, unpressured desire to learn something simply for the pure pleasure of learning it, without any expected external reward.
Like, how does the complex gearing in this antique watch work? What specific species of bird is making that beautiful, strange sound outside my window?
Yeah.
What is the actual chemical process of baking a perfect loaf of sourdough bread?
It's the difference between studying for a terrifying final exam and falling down a massive internet rabbit hole at 2 a.m. about something you just think is cool.
And there is this incredibly simple, scientifically backed hack to intentionally trigger interest curiosity. It sounds almost silly, but it works.
What is it?
All you have to do is vocalize the word, out loud. Try it right now, wherever you are. Put an inflection of genuine wonder on it. Doing that instantly psychologically shifts your brain state. It physically moves you out of a posture of rigid left brain judgment and into a right brain state of open exploration.
We really shouldn't dismiss it as just a silly hack. It is a vocalized pattern interrupt. When the brain is caught in a loop of judgment or anxiety, it is relying on its default mode network. Evaluation and judgment require immense cognitive energy.
So when you vocalize, you introduce a physical and auditory cue that signals the brain to momentarily suspend that harsh evaluation and transition into a receptive learning mode.
It creates a micro gap in the neural loop of judgment.
Yeah.
And once you create that gap and step into that learning mode, you can start doing what we call chasing the squirrels.
I absolutely adore this analogy, and it perfectly captures how we should treat our passions. Think of a highly trained, elite service dog.
Okay, a service dog.
This dog is perfectly disciplined. It is walking in a perfectly straight line, completely ignoring heavy traffic, ignoring loud noises, ignoring other dogs barking at it. It is entirely focused on its job.
But then, it sees a squirrel.
And suddenly, millions of years of primal instinct take over, the discipline vanishes, and the dog is entirely joyfully captivated by that squirrel. As humans, we all have our own internal squirrels.
These are those odd, deeply personal, sometimes wonderfully weird interests that instantly captivate our attention and make us forget about our to-do lists.
But many adults have completely lost touch with their squirrels because the managers have convinced them that such interests are unproductive and therefore a waste of time.
Identifying your personal squirrels requires stepping back and observing your own internal energy dynamics. You have to pay close attention to what pushes you versus what naturally pulls you.
Let's define that feeling. Pushing energy is when you have to forcefully generate the willpower to do something. It requires massive friction. It's an exhausting obligation, like forcing yourself to do your taxes or attending a stiff, boring corporate networking event.
You can do it, but it drains your battery.
Pulling energy is effortless. It's a natural fascination that draws you in like a magnet without requiring any willpower at all. You start reading an article, you look up, and 3 hours have completely vanished because you were so profoundly absorbed in learning about the construction of ancient Roman aqueducts.
Those pull activities, the things that make time dilate and vanish, are the vital breadcrumbs leading back to your true, authentic passions.
And a highly effective, low-pressure way to cultivate and protect them is by creating what we call a rag bag of curiosities.
A rag bag. For context, back in the day, people who sewed would keep a literal bag of leftover fabric scraps. A piece of red velvet here, a square of blue denim there.
None of it matched, it looked chaotic, but eventually those scraps could be used to create something beautiful. Your mental rag bag is a collection of anything that sparks joy or fascination, no matter how disjointed or random it seems.
It could be a mix of reading ancient Stoic philosophy, watching amateur woodworking tutorials, collecting photos of bizarre deep-sea creatures, and studying astrophysics.
But the single non-negotiable rule of the rag bag is that there can be absolutely no productivity pressure attached to it.
You are not allowed to collect these interests with the secret intention of monetizing them, turning them into a side hustle, or putting them on a resume.
The singular neurobiological goal is to reawaken the childlike rage to learn. You are purposefully stimulating the brain's reward centers, triggering dopamine release, simply through the pure act of discovery and play.
Because when you do that, you are actively starving the anxiety spiral. You are giving the brain a much better, much more engaging puzzle to solve than, what if everyone is mad at me?
But collecting these random curiosities is just the first step. Eventually, as the rag bag gets full, you have to start stitching those scraps together.
And that brings us to the final and most radical, paradigm-shifting part of this deep dive breaking invisible rules and quilting a life.
To fully step into this creative, anxiety-free, green zone state, we have to confront the societal structures that cause the anxiety in the first place. We have to examine the invisible scripts that unconsciously dictate our behavior.
From the moment we are born, society hands us prepackaged, highly restrictive roles.
The perfect, self-sacrificing parent, the relentless, unemotional corporate climber, the stoic, uncomplaining provider. We are handed these heavy costumes and told, wear this, hit your marks on stage, read your lines perfectly, and whatever you do, do not deviate from the script.
And society enforces these rigid roles with the constant looming, terrifying threat of social judgment. If you step out of line, the tribe will criticize you, or worse, exile you.
The managers inside our heads internalize those societal scripts and use them to torture us into compliance.
To break free, you must conduct a ruthless, honest audit of your own daily behavior. You have to identify the things you are doing only because you want to be liked, approved of, or validated by external observers.
Conversely, and perhaps more importantly, you have to identify the things you desperately want to do, but are avoiding only out of a fear of judgment.
Once you see those invisible rules clearly, once you realize they are just made-up social constructs, you must intentionally begin to break them.
You have to rebel against the script. And instead of spending your one wild and precious life trying to climb this linear, stressful, completely exhausting ladder of success that someone else built, you start creating what we call the sanity quilt.
The sanity quilt is the practical, lived application of the ragbag of curiosities. You take those disparate, colorful pieces of your unique interests and you begin stitching them together to form a highly individualized lifestyle.
There are such amazing real-world examples of this in the material we studied. People who took passions that made absolutely no logical sense together and combined them to create entirely new, profoundly joyful ways of living.
There was one individual who combined a passion for extreme, high-adrenaline outdoor sports with a deep, meditative study of internal self-knowledge and psychology, and ended up creating a completely unique methodology for wilderness coaching.
Or another person who simply loved baking bread and talking and started live streaming their messy kitchen experiments, eventually building a massive, supportive global community.
They didn't follow a high school career counselor's linear guide. They quilted their own path. By honoring their authentic intrinsic interests rather than forcing themselves into prepackaged societal roles, they stepped out of the traditional mechanical view of work and life.
To conceptualize this, I want to introduce a broader analogy. We often view our careers and our daily routines through a mechanistic paradigm. We view life as an iron cage factory.
A factory. Where you punch a clock, you are a replaceable cog in a massive machine. The environment is sterile, the output is rigidly controlled by management, and the goal is just endless, exhausting production.
Exactly. But the sanity quilt requires shifting to an ecological paradigm. Instead of a factory, think of your life as a biological forest. It is a complex, living ecosystem.
In a healthy forest ecosystem, a tree doesn't wake up in the morning and forcefully demand that it grow an extra 2 inches, according to a corporate spreadsheet.
It naturally, organically interacts with the rich soil, the available water, the sunlight, and the diverse wildlife around it. Growth is a natural byproduct of healthy interaction, not forced labor.
When you operate from a place of genuine curiosity and joy, when you are engaging your pull energy, you naturally attract the right resources, the right people, and the right opportunities. You constellate a thriving economic and social ecosystem around yourself simply by being authentic.
It changes everything from how hard can I push myself to how naturally can I grow. And when you align your daily physical actions with your deep intrinsic interests, you tap into one of the most powerful psychological states known to humanity. It's what we call the law of ultrafocus.
The law of ultrafocus describes the extraordinary neurological phenomenon that occurs when you combine intense physical action with complete spiritual and mental clarity.
When you have a crystal clear vision of what brings you intrinsic joy, and you bring deep, concentrated, unfragmented attention to the physical execution of that vision, you enter a profound flow state.
Flow state. It is pure magic. It is the moment when the clock on the wall completely stops mattering. Time disappears. The anxious, chattering ego disappears.
The internal civil war between the managers and the firefighters goes dead silent. You are no longer worrying about the past or the future. You are just purely, completely merging with the thing you love doing.
And we must emphasize the biology of this. In a deep flow state, anxiety literally cannot exist. The neural networks required to generate anxiety and self-referential worry, the default mode network, are completely taken offline.
They are entirely overridden by the neural networks facilitating profound engagement and hyperfocus. Flow is the ultimate biological antidote to fear.
Which perfectly and beautifully leads us to the ultimate destination of this entire journey. As we wind down this incredibly deep dive, we have to talk about the final philosophical antidote to the anxious, buzzing, I must know everything and control everything mind.
It is a concept called the don't know mind.
To understand the power of the don't know mind, we first have to understand our cultural conditioning. Western culture conditions us from childhood to believe that not knowing is a critical failure.
If you don't know the answer in school, you get a failing grade. If you don't know the answer in a corporate meeting, you look incompetent.
We are taught that uncertainty is synonymous with danger, a state of vulnerability that must be fixed immediately through frantic left brain analysis.
The don't know mind suggests the exact radical opposite, That accepting and embracing our inherent lack of total knowledge is not a failure, but the gateway to true psychological awakening.
There is an incredible, almost unbelievable example of this in the sources we reviewed. There is a specific artist, a painter, who was born completely without functioning eyes.
He has never, not for a single second of his life, seen the physical world. Yet he can flawlessly paint three-dimensional, highly realistic, textured landscapes. He paints detailed birds in mid-flight. He uses perfect mathematical, linear perspective in his architectural drawings.
Scientists and neurologists have studied him for years, and they are utterly baffled. How does he know what he is painting? How does he understand perspective without sight?
The truth is, science doesn't fully know. He taps into a profound mystery. He operates in a space beyond logical explanation. And if we can find the courage to embrace that level of mystery in our own everyday lives, it changes absolutely everything.
Embracing the don't-know mind requires a profound psychological surrender. It requires acknowledging that the universe and human consciousness itself is infinitely more complex, wondrous, and deeply interconnected than our anxious left hemisphere logic can ever possibly comprehend.
We do not, and we cannot, know everything about the future. And rather than that uncertainty being a source of terror that we must fight against, it can be a source of immense, beautiful liberation. If we don't have to know everything, we don't have to control everything.
I want to guide you, the listener, through a final, expansive thought experiment to really physically feel this liberation. Right now, wherever you are sitting or standing, I want you to close your eyes if it's safe to do so.
Try to imagine the vast, empty space just between your own two eyes. Feel the physical distance there. Now expand that. Imagine the seemingly empty space inside your entire body, all the vast, microscopic emptiness between the swirling atoms that make up your physical form.
You are mostly space. Now take that feeling of internal vastness and connect it to the absolute freezing silence and stillness of the infinite universe stretching out above you. Let your anxious, grasping mind just dissolve into that vastness for a moment.
When you cognitively touch the immense scale of reality, the daily grinding anxieties that plague the ego, the unread emails, the awkward conversations, the traffic jams, they suddenly seem remarkably small and manageable. You are connecting to the deeper, fundamental stillness that underlies all chaotic activity.
So we leave you with this final, profound paradigm shift to take into your day. What if your most important, vital contribution to the world isn't your endless, exhausting hustle?
What if it isn't your panicked midnight problem solving or your seemingly heroic ability to carry the heavy weight of everybody else's expectations on your shoulders?
What if the most revolutionary, deeply productive thing you can possibly do for the future of humanity is to radically protect your 14 minutes of peace every single day?
What if your true, authentic purpose on this earth is simply to heal your own internal community, quiet the civil war in your mind, and enthusiastically follow your bizarre, beautiful, squirrel-like curiosities with unapologetic joy?
It is a radical proposition, especially in our modern culture. But the biological and psychological evidence strongly suggest that when you heal your own nervous system, you inevitably alter the entire ecosystem around you.
Yeah.
Your calmness is contagious. You become a beacon of the green zone in a world that is desperately, tragically stuck in the red.
So thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the material. We challenge you to step out into your day right now with a soft panoramic gaze, a long, slow, sighing breath, and a mind thrown wide open to the incredible, liberating magic of the unknown.
And remember, the next time you hear that metaphorical predator rustling in the brush of your daily life, take a deep sigh and remind yourself, the societal X-ray machine might be broken, the cultural waters might be incredibly muddy, but you inherently possess the internal tools to navigate the dark.
Until next time.